Hey everyone, it's Dave Dubeau here with another episode of the Property Profits Real Estate Podcast. Today, zooming in all the way from beautiful Fort Worth, Texas, Max Keller. How are you doing today, Max?
Doing great. How are you, sir?
I'm fantastic. So if you're looking behind, if you're watching this on video, you're looking behind Max, you're seeing a beautiful bookshelf with some beautiful books on that. That's what we're going to be really focusing on here today because Max is not only a real estate entrepreneur, an ex-math teacher, which I find particularly intimidating, Max, because that was about one of my worst subjects in school. So hopefully we won't be getting into any math stuff here, except the fun one when it comes to profits. But Max is a real estate entrepreneur, and he's really dialed it in for how to use books as a sales and a marketing tool for us as real estate entrepreneurs. And we're going to really be talking about how to apply this for attracting motivated sellers. So Max, looking forward to that. First things first, we won't get too far into your background about stuff, but how did you kind of stumble across this whole idea of using a book for finding motivated sellers?
Yeah. So, my strategy, how I found it was really sort of born out of necessity. So I was a math teacher for 7 years, got into real estate, started out just part-time, then went to full-time and flipped a lot of homes in the first 2.5 years, nearly 100 homes. And so I
Wow.
felt really good about where I was at with my deal flow and my business. The problem was I was just constantly, interviewing for more deals. And, the leads were getting tighter. I'm in the Dallas Fort Worth area. And so, there's more competition. There's more, just skinnier margins. So I had to find a better way to get leads. I mean, I was doing pretty much what everybody else was doing, yellow letters, postcards, websites, bandit signs, and it just wasn't working. There was people who were willing to pay more. So step one is I went through a list of the deals that I'd already done and
Yeah.
figured out which ones had the most profit, which deals it was easy to work with the seller, and I had fun. So I want to make money and have fun at the same time. So my niche that I found the on my list of deals was senior homeowners. And senior homeowners for me, it made a lot of sense really because these folks needed a lot of different kinds of help. So step one for me to use a book was just to find my own niche. And once I found a niche that really worked for me, it had a lot of advantages. Then I actually got the idea from one of my sellers. So I didn't just, think it up. It was sort of what I was noticing is that with my senior homeowners, they needed a lot of different kinds of help.
Yeah.
And so if I could learn more information about the different things that they needed, like senior housing, referrals to different healthcare providers, things like that, referrals to attorneys, there was just like a lot going on at once. So what I was doing was I was learning more and just adding more value to the transaction. And so one of my motivated sellers is actually the adult daughter. She was like, in her 50s. She said, you've helped our family out a ton. I bought their house and then I helped their parents find somewhere else to live. And they said, you should write a book about this. And I was like, no, I'm a house buyer, math teacher, not a writer. But then I thought about it and I was like, it's actually a pretty good idea. I could go from the guy at that point, it'd been about a year, I'd really established myself in the niche of the guy who knew a lot about, senior homeowners, but I could make the pivot from the person who knew a lot about it to the person who wrote the book on it. So that's what I did. I wrote my first book and it was just it was a pretty simple process. We've made it even simpler for your viewers. I've got a free gift at the end, for everybody who's listening, but I just made a list of all the questions that I was getting asked over and over, in living rooms and what the answers were, the pros and cons, and, made my first outline, expanded it, and wrote my first book. It was called Home to Home, the step-by-step senior housing guide. And then I created a workbook to go with it. I printed out, 100 copies of it, and I started just giving it away as my business card. And I got some benefits from that we'll go into later that I was just not expecting. And it really transformed the way that I do, marketing for my home buyer business.
That is so cool. So interesting. So your book title wasn't all about, hey, how I can buy your house fast. It was really about what the big benefit is, the end benefits and the the steps along the way for your ideal prospective home seller, these senior people or their adult children that are trying to help them move from their house into a senior living facility or something like that. And you're really helping them along the way. So help us fill in the blanks. And then I like to say a book, as you've alluded to, is like a business card on steroids. So how do you go from having this book and having this workbook to getting people requesting that? Or were you just kind of, when you're doing your normal marketing, were you offering this book as a way to get your foot in the door? How did that part of the whole equation work for you, Max?
Yeah, great question. So at first I just started it as just a way to give it out to people as my business card. And then what happened was it started to become my like number one referral tool. So I started passing out a lot of these. And what I was noticing is, business cards and yellow letters and postcards, I would spend thousands and thousands a month on all those things. But if people didn't request them, they just throw them away. But I was noticing people weren't throwing away my book. So instead of being in the junk, paying, tens of thousands of dollars to be with the junk mail, I was on the coffee table with all the other autographed books from the author. So I also noticed none of my competition, had a book. If a lot of people think, well, Max, I'm not a writer. I mean, how am I supposed to write a book? And it's like, well, if you're thinking that, great news. A lot of your competition is too. And we've come up with a couple of ways to make it easier than ever. There's kind of two routes that you can go, but we'll talk about that later if we have time. But the bottom line is that I first just started getting all these phone calls from people and I didn't know who they were. And they said, we got a copy of your book. And I'm like thinking, I've never given it to them. So what happened was, it's just sort of common sense. If you have a book from a local author and it's about, this particular topic, mine was about, all the challenges seniors and their families face. If you know somebody at church or at the grocery store or one of your friends that's going through the same problem, you're just going to give it to them and say, hey, I know the guy who wrote the book on this. So my books started getting passed around. Another thing that happened is I started getting just like really pre-sold before I'd walk in the door. So the first I had no idea how to market with a book when I started doing this. I've had to learn all of this through a lot of trial and error. Now we have students all over the nation that use this and plug into our licensed content. But I had to figure this out on my own. So when I first went to a buy call, when I go buy the house, I brought my book and the senior homeowner was like, cool, you got a book? And they just wanted to read the book. They don't want to talk to me. They thought it was so cool they got this book. So then what we start doing is that when people call us, we go, have you gotten a copy of our book yet? And if they haven't, and it's a seller's market and they're thinking maybe if they don't know us, hey, you and a million other people are going to come and look at the house and we're just going to have an auction. Because, that's pretty much how it goes in some of these really competitive markets. The seller thinks that they've got the cheese and they're getting all these postcards. So they know that people want what they have. And so if you want what I have, you got to pay me for it. And so what we did is we totally flipped it. We said, so when people call us and they're like, yeah, come over right now. It's like, no, we don't do that. Have you got a copy of our book? It sounds like you don't know who we are. And they're like, oh, your book. Oh, I'm like, yeah, okay, check it out. We wrote the step-by-step senior housing guide, but chapter 3 is just all the ways to sell your home, pros and cons of each. You don't have to be a senior to take advantage of that. So here's our process. I'll send you a copy of the book. I'm going to autograph it. I wrote it. And then if I send it over to you, can you read chapter 3 before I come over? And they're like, oh, sure. And then what happens is that now they're not calling other people because they're really intrigued by what's going on. The people that they already called before us, they tell them not to come over because why would they work with anybody else when they already have the person who wrote the book on the subject?
Nice. And what's really smart about what you're saying here, Max, is you're not telling them, hey, read the whole book before I come over. It's read chapter 3. That's doable. That's a bite-sized chunk. Yeah. Trying to get them to read the whole damn thing, that might be asking a little bit too much.
Yep.
So logistics, how are you getting the books in their hand? How are you, because you want to do that fast. You want to strike while the iron's hot, so to speak. So what are you doing to get that book in their hand? Are you sending it by mail? Are you sending it by courier? What are you doing?
Yeah, so we do a lot of things. So if somebody calls us and they want to buy, get help with selling their house, well, then we just autograph it and send it via courier. So they get it like right then. It costs me a few bucks, but it's by far worth it when, I'm walking into the appointment and I'm already pre-sold. I'm not interviewing. They already know me. They've already invested. It's like when you tell a kid, don't look over there, and then they look over there. When I say only read chapter 3, a lot of times these are folks who maybe aren't traditionally major readers, they're reading the whole book because they're really interested in what's going on. This guy who wrote it's coming over to my house. I've never had that happen before. And so they've already invested 3, 4, 5 hours with me before I come over when I'm not even there. So now I'm not interviewing for a job or singing for my supper, and reeking of desperation. I'm the local expert, authority, and celebrity, and we're taking selfies, before we cross the threshold. And now it's just about our process and going through it. And so it's just a lot more fun. And I will tell you, we have people who call and said, "Hey, I read the book, and I read chapter 4, how to stay in my house. And I think I want to just stay put for a little while." And so it avoids us going over to people's homes when it's not necessary, because I'm sure folks can relate to that. But even better, when we go over there, most of the time it's just us, and it's they already know, like, and trust us from the book, and so it's just a way easier way to buy houses.
Very cool, Max. So that brings another question to mind for me. I got a bunch of them. So, but the first one that comes to mind is, do you actually use the book itself as a lead generator? So right now you're talking about, if somebody replies to some of your other marketing, you ask them, "Oh, by the way, do you have the book?" No. Okay. Is there a way that you use the book itself as a way to get people to, good pre-qualified prospective house sellers to put up their hand?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so actually that's one of the other benefits from a book that I was not expecting. So when I had my book out for a little while, and then I got a random phone call, and it was from a local church. And they had gotten a copy of my book from somebody who goes to that church. And the pastor called me and said, "Hey, I love this book. I love what you're doing. These are questions people are asking us, and I don't know the answer to those. Can you come in and speak to our congregation?"
Nice.
And I was like, "Sure." I mean, I didn't have anything prepared. I didn't have any fancy slides. I basically just brought a box of my books and myself, and I just, taught out of the book. And I had about 25, 30 people there, and they had the books, and they were just, they're all homeowners, and they were so engaged, and they were really, just hanging on every word. At the end, they were really appreciative. They came up and thanked me. We did some book signings. A couple of them actually booked appointments with me to go look at their houses, which was great. And so although, it was just a local church group, it felt to me like a TED Talk. And it was really cool because instead of just speaking to one homeowner, driving to their house, speaking with one homeowner at a time and seeing if they choose me, I had the opportunity to do that with 25 or 30 homeowners all at the same time. And so that's been a method that we and our students replicate, is those business to business relationships. So in the homeowner space, a lot of people are just, they're thinking B2C. So we're buying lists, we're stacking lists, we're texting people. The common theme in marketing right now is just send people a bunch of stuff that they don't want. And instead, what we do is position ourselves as the local experts. I'll give you another example. I spoke at our local county's probate attorney association. So do you think that 30 probate attorneys in a room where I'm standing up as the trusted expert, do you think they may know people who need to sell their home?
Every single one of them knows a bunch of them. Yeah, exactly.
So those are the kind of ways that we partner with different, depending on what niche we're going after, there's different folks that we can reach out to in the business side, and then speak to groups live and now, virtually, like we're doing right now. So there are some ways to generate leads, that way. That's I've never done before until I had a book.
So Max, people are probably thinking about this, and I really like to connect the dots for folks as much as possible. So if somebody's listening to this, well, it sounds good for Max. He's really focusing on, seniors trying to get out of their house, and he wants to, get their properties and flip them and that kind of stuff. But I don't do that. How would a book work for me if I'm focusing on the BRRRR strategy, or I'm trying to find, if I'm trying to find multifamily deals or something like that? So I know you've got a whole company around helping people, real estate investors, write books. How does it work in other niches like that?
Yeah, great question. So, there's really kind of two ways to go when it comes to a book. First of all, if somebody has to say yes or no in order for you to complete a transaction, and for them to say yes or no to you, there's some type of, educational piece around it, something that, that they're having to decide. It might be complicated. Then using a book could be something that is beneficial. We have two ways at our company that we help people, and it's really like the two types of investors. So I call them the DIY and the ROI. So the DIY investor, maybe a one man or girl show, They like to roll up their sleeves and, get everything, done, and are very hands-on. And, that takes a little bit longer to get the ROI that way. There's a little less leverage, a little more trial and error. But if folks like doing that, there's nothing wrong with it. So we've created, for the first of its kind, it's called the Real Estate Investor Book Writing Checklist. And in the book is, and I'm going to share at the end, a way that your audience get a free copy of it. We sell them for $12.99, but you can get a free copy. We have just a limited number that we're going to give away.
Well, go ahead, let them know now, because we got to wrap up here pretty quick, Max.
Yes, Deals Chasing You. So dealschasingyou.com/Dave.
Nice.
And so if you go to that site, it really breaks down how to write your own book. And it's a lot of the things I wish I knew when I started. It would have saved me about half the time. And then folks who are more on the ROI side and they leverage a team and they just want it, time is money. We have some different niches, licensed content that folks, can plug into so they don't have to write it all themselves.
Very cool. Very cool. Max, this is a lot of fun, my friend. So thank you very much for sharing your insights. I love it. I love how you kind of stumbled across this whole book writing thing, and now you've used it yourself with great success, and you're helping other people use it as well. And again, if people want to get in touch with you or get started with your world, the best way to do that is, what's the website again?
Yeah, go to dealschasingyou.com/Dave, and you can get a copy of the checklist. And then we have some free videos on our website that you can check out to understand what we're doing. It's a little bit different. And what I like about that is we're able to get different and I think a lot better results.
Awesome. Very good. Max, thank you very much, my friend. It's been nice chatting with you today.
Yeah, you too. Talk soon.
Take care. All right, everybody. See you on the next episode. Bye-bye. Well, hey there. Thanks for tuning into the Property Profits Podcast. If you like this episode, that's great. Please go ahead and subscribe on iTunes. Give us a good review. That'd be awesome. I appreciate that. And if you're looking to attract investors and raise capital for your deals, then I'm going to invite you to get a complimentary copy of my newest book, right back there. There it is. The Money Partner Formula. You can get a PDF version at investorattractionbook.com. Again, investorattractionbook.com. Take care.